You were born in 1994 in Denver, Colorado. Your father was a sales manager at a wholesale company. Your mother taught high school math at East High School. The family lived in a modest three-bedroom house in the Hampton neighborhood, a typical suburban home with a garage full of old stuff and a backyard that needed mowing. Childhood was calm, neither rich nor poor, just regular middle-class life in a regular neighborhood. Your dad worked long hours. Some quarters he earned well, others not so much. It depended on whether a big client placed a large order or pushed everything to the next month. From an early age, you saw that money was unstable. It came and went. But that didn't scare you. On the contrary, it felt like there was a system behind the instability, something that could be understood and figured out. Your mother taught math strictly and methodically, with no exceptions for age. At home, it was the same. Math problems at dinner, logic in every conversation. Prove it, instead of, because I said so. You didn't resist. You actually liked proving things. You enjoyed finding patterns where others saw only chaos. In school, math was the only subject that didn't require effort. Everything else was average. But math came easily. Your teacher once told you, you have an analytical mind. At the time, you didn't know how much that would matter. In 2011, during 10th grade, your classmate Dennis showed you a Forex broker website with a demo account. Virtual money you could trade right in the browser. You sat down at the demo during a break and didn't stand up until evening. Not because you made money, but because you understood the mechanics. Currency pairs, spreads, candlestick charts, support and resistance levels. That night you read about it all, downloaded books, and watched videos. Within a month, you knew the terminology better than Dennis, who had already forgotten about Forex. You didn't forget. You chose the University of Colorado, Denver, majoring in economics with a focus on finance. You picked it deliberately. You wanted to understand how money really worked in the system, not just on charts. You studied well, but always with trading on the side. In your freshman year, you opened your first real account. You saved $200 over the summer working at a warehouse, deposited it, and started trading. In the first 2 weeks, you blew 40% of it. That didn't stop you. It only made you more interested. You analyzed every losing trade like a math problem. Where was the mistake? Why did it happen? What should you have done differently? By the end of your freshman year, the account had grown from $200 to $600. That felt more important than any grade on your transcript. From 2012 to 2014, you traded Forex, mainly major currency pairs. Euros/USD, GBP/USD, USD/JPY. You absorbed everything. Technical analysis, fundamental analysis, intermarket correlations, and market psychology. You read Elder, Williams, and Schwager, not like textbooks, but like novels, marking them up with a pencil. Your mother saw the stacks of books and was happy you were studying. She didn't know what exactly. The account grew slowly but steadily. By the end of your sophomore year, it reached $2,000. By the end of junior year, $6,000. You never withdrew anything. You reinvested everything. Your parents covered living expenses, along with your scholarship and occasional side jobs. Trading wasn't income yet. It was your laboratory. You were building a system. The system was strict. Never risk more than 2% of the account on a single trade. Always use stop losses. Trade only according to your signals. Never on emotion. You logged every trade in a journal. Date, instrument, entry logic, result, and detailed review. First in a notebook, then Excel, then a dedicated trading journal. The discipline was almost military. You were proud of it. In 2014, the first big market move hit. The ruble wasn't relevant here, but oil crashed. Volatility spiked everywhere, and the dollar strengthened sharply. You caught several strong moves in USD pairs and made $11,000 in December alone, more than in the previous 2 years combined. You sat staring at the number, then called your friend Andrew. "Imagine, I made in 1 month what your dad makes in a year." Andrew said, "Seriously?" You replied, "Seriously." That was the first time you didn't separate luck from skill. December 2014 was an abnormal market. Such moves happen once every few years, and everyone in the right positions profits. You thought it was all you, your system, the result of 2 years of work. Part of that was true, part wasn't. You didn't see the difference then. You graduated in 2016 with a degree in economics, specializing in finance. You didn't take a regular job. Why would you, when trading was already bringing in real money? By graduation, your account stood at $40,000. You told your parents you found work as a financial analyst. It wasn't entirely a lie. You really were analyzing markets, just for yourself. From 2016 to 2018 were your golden years. You traded Forex and added futures on oil, gold, and stock indices. Diversification, multiple strategies for different market conditions, even some algorithmic elements. You wrote Python scripts to automatically place stop losses. It felt like real professional work. The account grew. $40,000, forward arrow $80,000, forward arrow $150,000. In 2017, crypto entered the picture. Bitcoin was rising fast. Everyone was talking about it. You entered in March 2017 when Bitcoin was around $1,200. By December, it hit $19,000. You sold most of your position around $14,000. Not the absolute top, but very good. That single year added roughly $200,000 to your account. Total balance, $380,000. You were 23 years old. In Denver, you bought a used BMW 5 Series. Nice, not brand new. You rented a good one-bedroom apartment in the city center. You gave your parents $5,000 as a work bonus. They didn't ask too many questions. Your dad shook your hand. Your mom cried a little. You thought, this is it. This is what all those nights in front of the charts were for while everyone else was out having fun. You developed a quiet, internal confidence. You started speaking about markets with authority. Friends asked about crypto. You explained it well because you understood the mechanics better than most. People listened. One evening, Andrew asked, "Can you show me how you did it?" He opened an account and made a little money riding the crypto hype. You knew it was mostly luck and momentum, but you didn't say anything. Why spoil it? In 2018, crypto crashed from $19,000 down to $3,000. You lost about $60,000 on positions you still held. The account dropped to $320,000. It hurt, but it wasn't catastrophic. You switched back to Forex and futures, waited it out, then re-entered crypto at the lows. It felt correct, and it was. The market eventually recovered. You thought, I know how to read cycles. I know how to wait. That part was true, as long as the markets behaved like markets. From 2020 to 2021 came the pandemic, then the recovery, then another crypto boom. Everything was rising, stocks, crypto, commodities. In such times, almost everyone in the market makes money. You made money too. And again, you didn't fully separate your skill from the tailwind. By November 2021, your account reached $1,100,000. $1 million. You sat in front of the terminal staring at the number, thinking back to the $200 you started with in 2011. 10 years. 5,500x. You wrote it in your phone notes over and over. 1,100,000, 10 years. Proven. Proven what exactly? You didn't specify. Just proven. Andrew found out about the million. You didn't brag. But when he asked how things were going, you simply told him the number. He was silent for a second. $1 million? Yeah. More silence. Then, listen, can you take some money to manage? I have about $800,000 saved up in rubles. Wait, dollars. About $11,000. You thought about it for 2 weeks, then said okay, but not officially, just between friends. Andrew transferred the money. You added it to your account. You didn't keep separate records. Why would you? You were friends. Everything was transparent. Then Dennis, the same guy who showed you Forex in high school, heard from Andrew and asked if you'd take $300,000, adjusted to dollars. You did. Then a colleague of Andrew's, someone you didn't know, but Andrew vouched for him, another $500,000. Then 2 more people through the chain of referrals. By February 2022, your account stood at about $1,400,000, of which roughly $200,000 belonged to 6 different people. You thought it was fine. You were still trading the same way, just with a larger scale. You had proven you knew what you were doing. February 2022. Markets went crazy, in the best way for a trader. Huge volatility, sharp moves, plenty of opportunities. You started trading more aggressively than usual. The justification was simple. Such markets are rare. You have to take advantage. You gradually increased leverage. 10x, then 20x. You were making money. That confirmed you were doing the right thing. March 2022. The account grew to $1,700,000. You called Andrew. Everything's going well. Your money is up. He was happy. You were happy with his happiness and your own confidence. April. The market began to turn, not sharply, but gradually, the way big markets reverse. You saw the technical signals, but you were in positions that were still profitable, so you told yourself to wait just a little longer. Classic trap. May. The account dropped to $1,200,000, a $500,000 loss in 1 month. You didn't tell Andrew. You waited for the reversal. It had always come before. June. $900,000 total. Of that, about $700,000 was yours. $200,000 still belonged to others. You told yourself, I'm in the red, but their money is still intact. That's what matters. I'm responsible. July-August. Crypto kept falling. Bitcoin dropped from $47,000 toward $19,000. You held your crypto positions, waiting. Then came the decision you would later see as the point of no return. In August 2022, you opened a massive Bitcoin position with 50x leverage using half the account. The logic: if Bitcoin bounces back to $25,000, this position alone would give plus 150% and bring everything back to break-even. You called it mathematics. It wasn't mathematics. It was gambling dressed up in numbers. The difference is subtle, and you no longer felt it. Bitcoin kept falling to $17,000. Margin call. The position was forcibly closed. $290,000 in 4 days. Account balance, $310,000. Of that, $200,000 still belonged to others. Your own money, $110,000. You didn't tell anyone. This was the first critical decision that determined everything that followed. If you had told them then, Andrew and the others would have taken their money back. You would have walked away with $110,000 of your own, painful, but a finite lesson. You didn't do that. Instead, you thought, I'll win it back in one good trade. One correct entry with leverage in the right direction. The math is simple when you're winning. When you're losing, it becomes different math. Every attempt to recover requires bigger leverage, bigger risk, bigger moves. You knew this theoretically. You had read about it in Elder. You had written in your own trading journal. Never chase a loss. Now you were chasing. September 2022. Several trades. Net minus 40,000. Account $270,000. October. You started borrowing money. Not from Andrew, from others. First from Victor, an acquaintance who owned a small auto parts business. You explained that crypto was at the bottom, perfect time to enter. Maximum 1 month, and you'd return it with interest. Victor asked how much. You said $400,000, adjusted. He transferred it, then quietly added, "These aren't entirely my money. I borrowed them from people. So there's no option. They have to be returned." You heard it. You registered it, then filed it away in the same mental drawer where you'd been storing all the uncomfortable facts for the past 6 months. November. Another $300,000 from your mother's cousin. He called himself after hearing you were into crypto and asked if he could invest. You said yes. He sent the money. By now the account was back up to around $550,000, including all the borrowed and entrusted funds. You opened a series of positions, more carefully than in the summer. Moderate leverage. Stops in place. For a week it went well, plus 30,000. You thought, it's coming back. I'm okay. Then the market turned again. Stops triggered. So you removed the stops so they wouldn't get hit on noise. You made that decision at 3 a.m., exhausted after 6 hours in front of the screen. You knew it was wrong. You did it anyway. December 2022. A countdown to $180,000. A significant portion still belonged to others. January 2023. You opened one final large position on Bitcoin with 100x leverage. It was 3 a.m. You hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. The logic had dissolved into a single word. It has to go up. It simply has to. Bitcoin moved down slowly and confidently, as if on purpose. Margin call after 7 minutes. Account balance $4,800. You sat there refreshing the page. $4,800. Refresh. Still $4,800. The phone on the table stayed silent. Night. No one knew yet. Tomorrow morning they would start asking. You stared at the phone and didn't pick it up. In the morning they knocked. You opened the door after 40 minutes, not because you were ready, but because you realized there was no other choice. They weren't going to leave. 2 men, Victor and a silent stranger, who looked you over as they stepped inside. Victor spoke without much anger, just tired. "Where's the money?" You explained. "Market, position, margin call." Victor listened, then said, "I don't care about that. I need my $400,000 back by Friday. I don't have it. Find it." They left. You closed the door and sat down on the floor in the hallway. You thought in numbers. Professional deformation. You always thought in numbers. Total debt. Roughly $2,500,000, adjusted to dollars, belonging to other people. On the account, $4,800, about $350,000 in today's terms? No, just $4,800. Deficit. Over $2 million you owed. This wasn't math that could be solved. You sold the BMW for $11,000 less than you hoped. Gave the money to Victor. He counted it silently, nodded. The silent stranger didn't come back. That was a good sign, you understood. The bad sign would have been if he had. You called Andrew first, before he could call you. It felt like the last scrap of dignity. Andrew picked up immediately. His voice was even. You said, "I lost everything." Silence. "All of it?" "Yes." Longer silence. Then, "Those weren't only my money. You understand what that means?" "Yes." He hung up, called back 20 minutes later, and hung up again. Your mother found out from her cousin. He called her confused, not angry, just not understanding. She called you the same day. Her voice was quiet. "Is it true?" "Yes." Long silence. Then, "Are you okay?" You thought it was a strange question. You said yes. She said, "Come over, please." You went. Your parents were sitting at the kitchen table. Dinner wasn't cleared. Your father looked at you. You expected anger. There was none, only exhaustion and something like fear. Not for the money, but for you. You sat at the same table where you once solved math problems your mother made up. Logic, patterns, prove it. You had proven it to yourself, to the market, to everyone. $1 million at 27. Then you unproved it just as quickly. Your father asked only one thing. What now? You didn't know. You sold the car. You moved into a cheaper apartment, then eventually back in with your parents. They didn't say much. They just cleared out your old room. You sat in the same bedroom where in 2011 you watched trading videos until 3 a.m. thinking you had found the system. You had found the system. It worked for 8 years. Then it stopped working. Or maybe you stopped following it. You thought about that for a long time, honestly, without excuses. The system had been correct. Stop losses, 2% risk, trading journal, discipline. You broke it yourself, removed stops, increased leverage, traded while exhausted, chased losses. Everything you had written in your journal as "never do this," you eventually did. Gradually, when other people's money was on the line, and the cost of a mistake became unbearable. The paradox you understood too late. The more important it was not to fail, the more you failed. Pressure doesn't improve trading. It destroys it. You got a regular job as a financial analyst at a small company. Good resume, real market knowledge. They hired you for $60,000 a year.